This is episode number 394 of the InnerFight podcast. Andre, we're back with another show sponsored by Smith Street Paleo. It's a bit ironic, really, that this one is all about food.
Yes.
Now, we're going to put you on the spot because we've got your current nutrition coach on the show, and I've seen the program that he gives you, and now we're going to talk about all the other shit that you eat. Liam Holmes, all the way from the UK, mate. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat to us. How are things back in the UK?
Thanks for having us on, lads. Yeah, everything's good.
Yeah.
Based in London, everything's good. Yeah, and this is I'm losing my podcast virginity. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
What an honour.
This is it then. Mate,
you guys.
Why don't you give us a little bit of background on sort of what you actually do so we can understand sort of what your role is, and then we'll dig into it a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I originally trained in sports therapy, so I've done my maybe just to working in like Premiership football. So I worked at Fulham Football Club for a number of years. That's when I retrained in nutrition. So I've done my masters in exercise and nutrition science there, and then just started to progress from that really. So worked at Republic of Ireland, and then moved on to Tottenham Hotspur. And
hold on a second,
the nutrition side of things just kind of like snowballed.
Hold on a second.
We have a little, mate. The connection has just gone really funny.
It's my
yeah.
Where was I? So it led me on to working for Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
And then that's when I kind of like started to set up the PH Nutrition, the current nutrition business that I'm running now. My time in football, I'd been in it for 12 years, so just started to kind of look at other areas, and then I got an opportunity to open a clinic in a CrossFit gym called CrossFit Shadesmiths in London through a guy I went to university with, and then I just kind of like dived right in really, and left my full-time job in football, and set the nutrition coaching business up.
Yeah.
And I fell into CrossFit through that, mainly because I was based in a CrossFit gym.
All right. What is it about nutrition that sort of brought you into nutrition, mate? What was the, you got people growing up, they want to be a lawyer and these big fighting law cases and stuff. Like when you looked at nutrition, what was attractive for you?
I think my passion started when I was at Fulham, and I started to understand like the importance of nutrition and how it can affect your recovery and health, and it just has such a wide range of effects. And I think that's kind of what led me into like retraining in nutrition rather than kind of further go down the medical side of things. So I just saw the wide ranging effects that how important it is in not just for like long-term health and recovery and things.
So you open up a clinic within a CrossFit gym, or how did that all unravel?
Yeah, so like the guy, I went to the university with one of the owners, D. Steggles, and he approached me and just said, like, look, dude, we're opening this gym, and we've got some rooms in the back. We're going to have like medical, and I'd really like you to have the nutrition side of things here. And then I just kind of like thought about it, and I was in a full-time job in a Premier League football team, so it was difficult decision to make.
Right.
But the opportunity is there, and it's such a great environment, and it's just gone from strength to strength. Like we're now based in a couple other gyms. Whatever it takes, have just opened a gym in London.
Yeah, that's where Toucan is. We had a member, one of our members, Yusuf Toucan, who actually listens to the show. He's just left Dubai, moved to the UK, and joined that brand new gym, whatever it takes, in London. So I'll tell him to come and say hi next time I chat to him. That's cool. So what is it within, like, because in a lot of gyms, mate, like you go to a normal Globo gym and there isn't really a massive, people know that they need to take care of nutrition, but it seems that CrossFit and nutrition have become quite tight knit. It's like you have to pay more attention. How have you seen that sort of growth and that evolution? Because I remember when I first joined Virgin Active in Leeds when I was a student, it was like, there was actually a bar in there. So we'd have a workout, we'd go in the spa, and then we'd go and have a pint and a pie, and it was great. So what's that change, mate? Why do you think it's come like that?
I just think the people are aware of how important nutrition is, and how, and I think as CrossFit becomes more mainstream as well, like the intensity, people understand that fueling yourself in the correct way can, really kind of maximize your membership. So you're paying a lot of money to come and kind of train, and as opposed to paying like the £20 gym membership that you used to.
Yeah.
Now people are spending out a lot of money to train, on a regular basis. So they want to maximize that membership. So nutrition is a massive part of that. So I think that's where it started to, people are starting to kind of look at other areas on how to make performance better.
Right.
And nutrition is a huge part of that.
Mate, what's your approach with nutrition exactly? How do you build up diets? I mean, I know how you build it up for me, but let's say we're talking about average gym members versus athletes, for example.
Yeah. Like one of our kind of big philosophies is like, we don't really, follow a specific method. We kind of focus on principles opposed to methods.
Yeah.
So like we don't advocate like, oh, you should be like paleo, you have to be zone, or you have to be keto or whatever. One of our biggest philosophies is educating people so they have this, like grounding in terms of how to make better choices with nutrition. So one of the most popular kind of things that's kind of come out recently is like marginal gains, or focusing on like, like do the 1%, like 1%, and you make a bigger kind of progression. But what we see is people need to do the basics. So like doing the basics consistently well, and that will be a better kind of starting point for a lot of like average kind of CrossFitters and gym members. But, like a lot of the athletes that we kind of work with, like they need to be doing the basics as well. They often can be focusing on small 1%ers, and, that's fine if you've got like your grounding in a good place, but you need to be focusing on doing the basics well. Yep. So our big philosophy of ours is like kind of principles as opposed to methods. And, we see a lot of kind of like common traits. So it's just educating people on how to set their nutrition up for them and personalize it.
And what are the main things that you're teaching when you're talking about the basics?
Eating enough food. A lot of CrossFitters, we see underfueling quite a lot. Focusing on like eating the best that your budget allows. So,
mate, can I jump in there? When you say we see people undereating, what does that really mean? Because in society these days, we're like, people are overeating, and now we're saying undereating. So what do you mean by that? Because I think if some people start to listen, they're going to go, fuck, this guy's like undereating. Everyone's undereating. I'm going to go out and just smash food. So tell us what you mean by that.
Shove a lot of stuff in there,
This guy's great.
Everyone's signing up for you, mate. Like, who is this guy? So talk to us a little bit about that, mate. What is undereating, and what are the dangers and impact of undereating?
Okay, so when I say undereating, I maybe should have said that underfueling.
Yeah.
So when we say like, we see people coming into like, say you do a 7 p.m. class or something like this. They'll eat lunch at maybe 12 p.m. or kind of 1 p.m. and then through work or lifestyles or something like this, they won't eat until like, when they're on the way to the gym at like 6 p.m. or something like this. And they go, oh, I haven't eaten, I'm really hungry, but it's so close to my workout, I don't really want to drink, so they'll snack on something. And what that does is, by the time they finish their class and got back home and cooked food, it's like 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. If you look at that kind of like whole like time period of like 9 hours, they might have only taken in like 200 calories or 150 calories from a small snack or something like this. And if you want to kind of maximize your performance, then you need to be thinking about structuring your diet a little bit better. So what that often leads then to overeating in the evening, because you're super hungry, you've just worked out. So maybe that's where I think underfueling is probably a better term to be using.
So
that's a common thing that we see.
What do you let's jump into that population, then we'll get back to those sort of principles. What would you suggest? Because I think that's one of the biggest asked questions. We've got exactly the same dynamic here. The example you've given, lunchtime, they eat like 1 o'clock, they come to a 6:30 class, and everyone's like, I'm super hungry. So what's your go-to sort of meal for your, and I know we need to generalize a bit here, mate, but what's your go-to afternoon snack for the general population that do a CrossFit class at 5:30 or 6:30 in the evening?
Yeah, like being prepared is a big thing. So like prepping up something so you're not relying on like having to buy it from a shop.
Yeah.
So I mean, simply like making up like a simple smoothie of, like a fruit base, veg base, a little bit of protein. You can transport anywhere is
easy.
That's a basic.
Yeah.
You could have like we like to have a kind of balanced snacks and like not like shoving a load of carbohydrates or like loads of fats before. So it's a nice balanced meal. So You could, if you want to, like some mixed nuts and a bit of fruit.
Yeah.
You could have some yogurt, some coconut yogurt. Some of the Smith Street paleo stuff is great. Like the
yes, massive plug. Thank you, mate. Love that one. Straight back at you.
He's done his research, right?
He's done his research, guys, all over it. Yeah, cool. So let's hop back to the principles that we were talking about. Yeah.
One thing that you taught me that was that I found really interesting that you saw on my previous diet, and based on how we've changed my diet from I started working with you about 10 days ago. One thing that was really interesting that you saw in my current diet, or the diet I had before we started working together, was that a lot of my proteins, I had a very heavy protein meal, like sort of right after my training or like in between my training sessions. So if you're out there and you're an elite elite CrossFit athletes, let's call it that, who trains 2-3 times a day during the whole year, what are your recommendations for in-between meals? Because I think this has been it's been a game changer for my own training and how I feel for my second session, for example.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when, like, this is for elite CrossFit athletes that are training maybe like 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
When you're doing that volume of training, like, you need to be thinking about like how you're fueling and refueling. So actually, like, there's different kind of priorities. So you want to be thinking about like energy balance, and if you're having a lot of protein like in between those 2 sessions, what that's going to do is it's going to delay like gastric emptying. So you're not going to be digesting the carbohydrates or the fats as more efficiently, because like we want to be thinking about focusing on carbohydrates. So the short amount of time that you have between your sessions, we want to be thinking about an easy digestible form of protein.
Yeah.
Actually lowering the fiber content of some of your meals, and maybe thinking about how that meal is being digested. So we wanted you to be pushing your protein towards maybe like around your workout, so like in the morning or after like your heavier session. So when you're going into your maybe 3rd session or a mobility or kind of skills class, like where you don't need that like kind of like high energy, really fueled, or we push it to the evening where you have a little bit more time to kind of rest and digest.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that we worked on with you. For the average kind of gym goer, then, they're not training 3 times a day. So protein content in the day and spread out a little bit more is going to work better.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I definitely have seen the results from even just the past 7 days or 10 days where it's been a bit more spread out. And I mean, this is really dialing it down to the details. Like, you asked me, like, what kind of sessions do you do in your AM? What kind of sessions do you do at your noon? And what time do you, like, how's your session at PM? Can we generalize them so that we can kind of create the diet based on what type of training? Like, is it, like you said, a mobility session, or is it, a heavy cardio session or a big strength session? And kind of, it's just crazy how, different foods will affect different kinds of training.
Definitely. That's a big part of it as well. Like, finding what works for you, like finding which meals make you feel good. Like, I want members, like athletes and members, coming into class going, right, I'm ready to crush this. Like, I feel so good. Like, I feel, like I really want to kind of like attack this, as opposed to, I'm sure you see it with your members. Sometimes they come in and they're just getting through.
Yeah.
Or they're just like, they're like, you don't want that. You're paying a membership. You want to be getting the most out of that hour or that 2 hours in your day. You want to be crushing it. So finding what works for you. And when I looked at Andre's diet there, that was just, one part of the puzzle that we looked at in terms of changing. So, there's plenty more that we're going to work on in terms of finding what fuels you for specific sessions, how you recover. So, there's lots more to work on. But, for a lot of the people, it's finding what works for them.
What are the common mistakes for CrossFitters in general that in their diet? Like, when you work with clients, what are like the big red alerts or whatever you want to call it that you see in their diet when you speak to them?
Like, not eating enough vegetables. Yeah.
Okay. Why is it so important that we get all our vegetables in?
They just they provide so many different kind of nutrients, micronutrients, all of these different things, as well as like providing fiber. Like, protein is massively important, as is like carbohydrates and fats. But getting the vegetables is going to help your performance, help your recovery. It's going to make you feel like satiated when eating. So, that volume of food is going to help, and which will lead to kind of a bit more balance. Some of the other things that we see is people are underhydrating, but also being a little bit scared of carbohydrates. I think there's a bit of a shift now. Like, people are starting to understand the importance of carbohydrates, especially in CrossFit. So I think previously there was a little bit of a mindset that you didn't need that many carbohydrates, but CrossFit's a glycolytic sport, so you need to be fueling the tank. So I think that's starting to shift now. So there's some of the areas that we see commonly with athletes as well as members.
Mate, looking at members, like we've spoken a little bit obviously about Andre there, and maybe the guys that have aspirations to compete at a certain level, be it regionals or do super well in the Open or even go to the games. What about when we take just the general gym member? Because what I'm seeing now, as here in Dubai, is our general gym member is head screwed by calories, head screwed by macros, and literally, and hopefully some of them listen to the podcast, and if this is you, you've been counting your macros and your calories for the last 6 months and you're still fat, it's clearly not working. What's your what's your take on that? And I'm talking about people that have they want to do super well, and I want everyone to do well, but they're 9 to 5 and they come an hour a day to the gym. How much of a shit should they be giving when it comes to calories and macronutrient breakdown?
I think you need to have an understanding. You need to have a base understanding of energy balance, calories in, calories out. That needs to be there.
Yeah.
But obsessing over but weight loss and fat loss and performance, there's so many different other factors that will affect it, as opposed to just protein, carbs, and fats. Yeah. So once you have a kind of baseline, tracking, so you understand how much is in certain meals, it's good to kind of track your breakfast or a couple of times, or your dinner a couple of times, just so you have a guideline. But once you have this, you need to be thinking about other areas. So if you're thinking about the amount of calories that you're eating, your body, the type of food quality that you're getting those from is going to affect your body composition. Then the nutrient time is going to affect it, how your gut health is. All of these different things will have an effect on body composition and your performance, as opposed to I've eaten 2,000 calories today. You eat 2,000 calories, you're not going to get lean. But if you eat 2,000 calories of a kind of balanced diet, then it's going to have a massive effect on your fat loss. So when you're looking at that, general gym goers, you need to have that understanding, but then you need to start to kind of find what works for you. Nutrition's N equals 1, so finding what works for you. If that calorie balance is you're not making any progress for 6 months, you need to look at other areas sleep or digestion, or immune function,
But is it? I mean, do you see it often, mate, that people, they're told by, for example, I won't say by you, but by another nutritionist, that should be 2,000 calories and the macronutrients should be this, and they follow it, and they're because they've been told it, and they count the calories, and they're well, it has to work, but it's not working. So they're either cheating or they've had the information done wrong. How often do you see where actually the macronutrient breakdown that people are following and the number of calories that are being told to eat is just wow, that's just I wouldn't do it like that at all?
Yeah. I do see that quite commonly, and it's often where people put in low amounts. So I very rarely see it where it's high amounts, but it's very low amounts. So they might be on 1,300 calories or something like this, and I'm
that's crazy. Yeah.
I feel tired during training. How much do you eat? 1,300 calories, dickhead.
But is there any generalized guidelines that you would recommend? So if we have members who are listening right now and they're not really tracking all their food and exactly, but they want to follow some sort of guidelines. They come 5 times a week. How many calories, how many protein, etc. should they have?
I mean, it's.
I mean, I know it's very individual.
Yeah, it's very difficult to give that the actual calorie and macronutrient breakdown to everybody. Because if I give something to a 90-kilo man compared to a 60-kilo woman, it's completely different. However, a big thing that we work on is structure of your day. So like we often start people on like 4 meals a day, or 3 meals plus 1 snack, and then that allows you to kind of have that structure of like enough time between meals, enough time to be able to fuel or refuel from your morning session. So say you train in the morning, you eat breakfast, lunch, mid-afternoon snack and dinner. If you train in the evening, you can have that snack becomes your pre-workout and your dinner becomes your post-workout. So a big thing in terms of that is like getting that structure right. And then if you're going to, any nugget can go on and calculate some macronutrients. There's a million calculators online and stuff like this. So you can go on and do that. But a kind of good nutrition coach or, a good coach will earn their money by kind of refining this and finding what works for you. Yeah. So the big thing is start with 4 meals, track maybe a couple of your meals that you eat regularly, so you have an understanding of how much they are. And then it's that trial and error. But start with 4 meals. Don't go over long periods without eating, and then backload a load of your calories in one meal. So that structure is a big thing to focus on, and that's what we kind of would advise a lot of members to be starting out with.
So kind of structure and timing of the meals. Because what I've seen or heard is, people follow these macro diets and, it's 8 p.m. and they missed a couple of meals, and then they're like, oh, but I still need whatever 200 grams of this and 100 grams of that and 50 grams of that. But I'm also going to go to bed in like 30 minutes. So, and then they just eat all of that right before bed. And that's where, of what you just said, that doesn't really work because there's absolutely zero structure. It's just compounding everything.
We've seen, I've had clients come to me before and they're like, oh, I had to put like honey on my rice because I needed to get my carbs in. I'm just,
how does that even taste?
What are you doing? Yeah, it tastes good. But then you need to be looking at okay, well, sometimes counting macros and counting calories can add stress. It can add that anxiety of thinking about calories, especially when you're maybe eating out or something like this. But also if you're doing that, your body can only kind of digest a certain amount of food in one sitting. So if you're shoving 300 grams of rice with a load of sugar,
it's not going to work.
It's going to be good for you.
So we understand that the general population do have a little bit to learn, mate. Let's talk about that a little bit because we said it at the start that now gym memberships are a little bit more than 20 quid. People can be paying quite a bit of money to go to a gym. What do you think is the point where someone should pay more money and have a nutritionist advise them, potentially, or whatever you want to call it, manage their nutrition? And how long do you sort of want to work with someone that's just the general population, 9 to 5 or 2.5 children, to sort of get their nutrition in line? How does that work for you as a nutrition coach?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The amount of time that we work with people, we offer 3-week packages, like a diet setup, and we offer 3 months as well. After 3 months, I'm hoping that that myself and the nutrition coaches that work for me, we've educated people in terms of how to find what works for them. We've we've delivered it, and we've worked together as a bit of partnership to be able to identify any kind of weak areas or anything like problems or stumbling blocks. And then, we empower them to be able to go and, set up their nutrition plan for themselves and have that kind of flexibility and, longer term. So if they need to then check in at regular times throughout the year, that's fine. But, I don't necessarily need a long term, approach. So, people coming in, especially when they're starting CrossFit, is quite a nice thing, I think, to maybe kind of get your diet set up so you don't build into bad habits. But maybe when you're starting a new training cycle as well, or if you've hit a plateau, that's when I would say to people they're the most useful times to come and get a nutrition coach, just to give you that bit of guidance, a bit of support and a bit of accountability as well.
Yeah. Talking of accountability, mate, I think that's one of the big things. How do you what do you use, or what do you get your clients to use to sort of track their food? And how do you, because you're based in London, I know you have some clients all around the world. How do you manage that, and how do people become accountable to you?
So I love Google Sheets and Google Docs and all of this.
Oh yeah.
It's all interactive and you can work on it at the same time. So But like we don't ask everyone to track their food on MyFitnessPal or anything like that. If you want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Some clients do ask that, just to get a bit of a better insight.
Yeah.
We use we use Google Sheets, and we use we got this nutrition software that can kind of allow like check-ins and stuff like this. But we would use WhatsApp, we would use emails. Like the Google Sheets is good for me. We have an interactive trackers and different kind of like ones for athletes and members.
Yeah.
And it just gives them like a chance to, record certain metrics. So motivation to train,
yeah,
sleep quality, like overall energy levels. And then we have a notes section, which it keeps everything in one place. Because if I ask you like, oh, how did you feel like 3 days ago? And you'd be like,
cool.
I don't know.
I just asked you to check my training peaks, bro.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean, mate. We face exactly the same things. Like, what did you eat yesterday? Subway.
Yeah.
No, that was on Saturday. Yeah.
You mentioned.
Go on.
Go. Hit me.
So no, the other one is like there's so many different apps now, like that you can use for like habit forming, and that's a big part of nutrition and making it kind of sustainable. Like there's one called Productive, and there's another one called Habit Ball and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And just having little reminders and like check-ins, and like if you set these up, they're super beneficial for keeping you on point as well.
Cool. You mentioned sleep earlier in this little conversation, and how that affects weight loss and in general like just gains in training. Talk to us about that and how it affects the overall training, and how it affects also your eating habits, etc.
Yeah, like sleep, we have for us 4 key areas of nutrition, and macronutrients and that are obviously important, but like sleep, gut health, recovery, immune function, these have massive like effects on how your nutrition kind of like makes you achieve your goals or can kind of put a blockage on in terms of your progression. So sleep is like it's where you repair, it's where you regenerate. So if you're not sleeping, like it can have massive effects on performance, digestion, motivation to train and stuff like this. Like there's so much research out there on like how it affects your hormones. So like this is called leptin and ghrelin, where it's like satiety and hunger hormones. If you have like, even like 1 day, 2 days reduced it, like you can become resistant to these, and there's certain higher levels of ghrelin, which is like your hunger, and lowered levels of leptin, where you actually like don't feel as satisfied when you eat, so you overeat, like insulin levels as well. So there's huge effects in terms of like how even just like 1 or 2 days of sleep deprivation can have a knock-on effect.
And what are the general recommendations and guidelines that people should follow regarding sleep?
Like a big thing for us is like quality of sleep. So if you're struggling to get to sleep, or if you're waking regularly, then we need to kind of maybe have a little bit of an assessment. But if you're trying to like, I had this conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and I was like, oh, how much sleep do you get? And she's like 5 hours. She's like, I get up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock to come and train in my early class, because that's the only time I can train due to work.
Yeah.
So you can't then say to them, oh, get 10 hours sleep, because life gets in the way, and training gets in the way. So can we push that back, like to maybe go to a little bit earlier, or can we try and improve the quality of sleep? It's super hard in this day and age where people are so busy, and we train late, train early mornings as well. I mean, I know over there you have classes from like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5:30. Yeah.
Super early to do that.
Yeah. What, mate? We see quite a few people that are struggling to go to sleep, and I believe that a lot of that is. Some of it's related to the fact that they work out at like 6:30, 7:30 at night, and they're absolutely buzzing, and then they try and go to sleep by 9:30 and simply can't. But a lot of that is related to food. What do you see? What bad habits are people into that is preventing them from sleeping well?
Yeah, like touching on that, like the not being able to sleep in the evening. Like, yeah, the evening training does have a massive effect on that, because there's a thing called circadian rhythm. So where you have like an elevated cortisol in the morning, and then it should like kind of like taper down, and then other hormones kind of elevated to help us to fall asleep and rest and recover. If we train in the evening, it can spike your stress hormones such as cortisol, stuff like this. But what we see is people not refueling properly afterwards. Like carbohydrates will help kind of like lower cortisol, they'll help to boost serotonin and melatonin and help to induce healthy sleep. So if you restrict your carbohydrates post-workout, especially after like a hard, intense session, then your body's kind of hormonal profile is going to be all over. It's going to be massively out of whack. So it's not going to be like in that right kind of right kind of mindset, got to see, as well as everything's kind of like a bit messed up. So we see that circadian rhythm and balance of food over the day can have a massive effect in terms of like, I'm sure people see it where they go to bed and like they're super tired, and then they get into bed and then like they just kind of wake up and they're quiet.
Mate, you've spoken quite a bit there about hormones. You've mentioned it on a few occasions. When do you get people to go and get blood work done? Like at what stage of weight loss or on someone's weight loss journey are you interested in seeing some blood work?
Usually, like if they've had blood work done straight away, like we'll analyze it. But we like to kind of get blood work done maybe after like the first kind of month, maybe 6 weeks, because diving in and doing blood work straight away is it's a snapshot blood work, so it can be very, very good information, but can also be a little bit dangerous. So what we would like to do is just kind of get into a consistent kind of diet, get into some patterns of eating. And then that will give us a better idea of their profile, as opposed to just, doing something like just like straight away, and then we can kind of work on it and with a little bit more purpose, as opposed to just going, we'll just get blood work done and then we'll base everything off of that. So we like to have people with a bit of consistency before we dive into blood work. The other one is when they hit a plateau or something like this. Really, really beneficial.
What general blood marker, like what sort of blood work do you suggest people get done? If someone's listening and going, I'm in a plateau, or I can't quite figure out, like, what are they getting tested and what are they really looking for?
Like, I would definitely get some like vitamin D levels, maybe like vitamin D, like magnesium. Look at your omega levels, like your omega-3, omega-6 ratios. But do a basic blood chemistry to look at like insulin resistance. So like there's a thing called HbA1c, which will give you your blood glucose levels over the last 3 months, and look at like liver function and stuff like this. So like basic blood chemistry is pretty standard, and then these little add-ons of like omega ratios, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, maybe even some B12, and that can kind of give us a pretty good profile in terms of like areas to focus on.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, you've tried to get me to do some blood work already, and
over there.
And we're trying hard, but it's extremely expensive here in Dubai.
Yeah, it's how much. Like, if you took that blood work that you said, that's just basically checking our vitamins and mineral levels. That's really what we're doing. How much would you expect to pay for something like that in the UK? Because it might be worth, like, a lot of our clients travel from here to Europe and places. It might actually be worth. So what sort of money are we talking about to get that stuff done, mate?
Yeah, we use a company, and they have a really good profile, which will cost about £180.
Wow, so less than 1,000 dirhams.
Yeah, less than 1,000 dirham, and that gives a really kind of like broad spectrum, kind of most of the things that I just spoke about there.
Yep.
And I'm a trained phlebotomist, so they can book in. I can take your bloods. But the over there, like even like the basic kind of like testing, like we're looking at like £500. So I wouldn't advocate doing that, but I listened to the podcast that you got all of the testing done, Mark. That all the functional medicine testing, that's incredible. Like my background in football, we was very lucky being able to do all of that. So if you can get that information, it's so valuable.
Yeah, cheers, Booper. They cover that. But that was about 9,000 dirhams, 8,000 dirhams, so about £1,500. Yeah,
that's
mate, it's
crazy.
Legit. Yeah. And then
that over here, it would be about 650.
Wow. I think one of the biggest things in all of this, and this is a little bit what it comes back to, is it's also it's very good to get that done, but it's also very important to have like someone like you, Liam, who can obviously read the blood work properly and then prescribe not the right medicine, but the right food and then the right natural supplementation. Yeah. Because I think that's where people are making the biggest mistakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a real skill element in terms of interpreting blood work. So we see it a lot where, the reference ranges on the blood work that you'll get back, if you don't have someone skilled to interpret it, then, you could be like, oh yeah, you're absolutely fine. You're within reference range. You don't have any problems. However, the reference ranges are just general public and stuff like this. We see CK levels, like creatine kinase levels, being elevated because, CrossFitters, we train quite a lot and, it's intense work. So that'll always be out of range. And we're starting to kind of build patterns in terms of CrossFitters now. So we're seeing that a lot of people are deficient in B vitamins, vitamin D, and, like certain kind of patterns, common things are starting to kind of crop up. However, if you don't have someone interpreting them, then you could easily kind of skip over these things.
Yeah.
The other thing to really kind of touch on is blood work needs to be done kind of on a regular basis,
right?
Because you need to look at trends. So if you get a snapshot of, like, to say your magnesium levels are completely within range, that's fine, but you don't know the trend. If it's going from like, it was like high and now it's like in within reference range, you could be on a downward trend.
Yeah.
So if you don't kind of put an intervention in to stop that, then you could be on your way to a deficiency, and that can have kind of negative health effects. So,
man, that's going to be a big investment, huh?
£1,500 a pop, mate. Yeah,
just every month or weekly, or
people are going to absolutely rape me on my premium this year. They're going to be like, this guy gets his blood done all the time.
I'm going to have to upgrade my insurance.
Yeah, you are. You sort that out.
Talking about supplements, you already mentioned vitamin D and vitamin B. What other supplements do you generally recommend for CrossFitters, both average members as well as elite CrossFitters? Is there a difference, or is there like just for both the same general guidelines?
Like supplementation is similar to nutrition. It's so individual, but we are starting to kind of see common things. Like I touched on B vitamins there. Like a lot of people will take like a multivit or something like this, but the B vitamins are involved in so many kind of metabolic processes that we're starting to see that they are deficient, and the amount of like coffee people drink and other kind of like nutrients can deplete the B vitamins as well. So B vitamins, you have to get the active form. We're seeing that come out quite a lot. Vitamin D, I would definitely advocate at certain times of the year. Super important for kind of function and recovery.
Sorry, mate. Can you say that again? We just lost you a little bit there, mate. Say that again. You at certain times of year, something.
Yeah, so certain times of the year, you would definitely look to kind of supplement with a vitamin D. As we, in England and Scandinavia and other these countries, and even in Dubai, there's quite a high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah.
Throughout the year, we would definitely look into adding a zinc, magnesium at certain times, maybe through like increased periods of like higher training. Something that we definitely use for like strength is like creatine, beta-alanine, stuff like this, like increasing strength and performance. And a lot of things like we use it with Andre here is a thing called glutamine, and we use glycine sometimes. Like, these little things we're working on kind of like gut health and recovery, and but it's all a bit of a cycle. So those are the kind of do the basics, and see how your recovery responds.
And I think one thing was that's interesting you mentioning, you go through cycles. I remember one thing you said to me is that like vitamin D levels and stuff like that, it doesn't just rise from taking it for one day. Like it's consistently over longer periods of time that's going to lift up those levels. And what else is interesting is that like almost like elite training now, it goes through periodization, like depending on where you're in the season, what phase you're in strength phase, cardio phase, are you preparing for the open or the games or whatever, you have to adjust the supplements you take for that. Because I think a lot of people, including what I used to do myself, I should take same supplements all year regardless.
I couldn't have put it better. Like people periodize their training, so you kind of have to, why don't people periodize their nutrition? So it's to correlate that to, especially with the athletes, to correlate that to their programming, their training focus and stuff like this. And supplements can really, really help that. So we wouldn't be on beta-alanine for 365 days a year, but leading into the open when maybe we're thinking about it's a little bit more kind of anaerobic, lactate threshold stuff, we can use something that will help benefit that. So beta-alanine might be something we'll add in. And again, on a recovery, maybe you come out of a hard training period, you might add in some fish oils and some other things to help you, help support your profile there.
Mate, one thing that is, I think, becoming massively a part of a lot of people's lives, and we've mentioned it once, but we've not touched on it, coffee. Give us your rundown on coffee. How much literally can I drink without exploding?
I'm trying to get as much in people's diets as possible. Like, I love coffee, and it's definitely something caffeine and is one of the most researched kind of like supplements in the world, and it has a massive ergogenic effect. So it does help boost your performance. There is a little bit of a bell curve with it. So up to a certain point, it's really, really beneficial. But if you go up to that threshold, then, you fall off the end of the cliff and start getting itchy face, or, start getting angry at people.
Beta-alanine face. It's like,
itching the whole body.
The whole body, What's your general cap there, mate? Because that's the question that we get asked the most. Like, how many cups can I literally have a day?
It is individual. Like, it's a big genetic component to caffeine metabolism. But for me, like, if you're having like two double espressos, or everyone puts 2 shots in coffees now, so like 2 coffees a day. Is probably like a safe limit. And then that third one is either like, it can tip people over the edge, or, depending on how long you've been up or what you're doing. I would say like 3 max, 2 is probably a safe element.
Andre, you're fucked. Have you told him how much coffee you drink, mate?
Liam, we'll talk later.
We'll talk later about that one.
We got to Skype later.
Mate, just give us, we don't want to take too much more of your time, but what is the process, and this is your absolute free plug, what is the process of someone working for you? What are the steps? Like, is there an initial consultation, Skype? What can they expect? How does it go? If I was to say, I like this guy, I want to start working, how do we go about it?
Perfect. So the easiest way, like, they can drop me an email or contact us through Instagram, but the easiest way is to head over to the website. All of the packages are laid out there, all of our services. And then you can sign up online. So when you sign up, it kind of like, once you pay, it redirects you back to our intake forms.
Okay.
Once you do that, you fill out the form. Super quick, just to give us an overview of your nutrition, your lifestyle, training, any kind of previous issues that you've had been going on. And that gets sent through to us, and we'll analyze it. So once we analyze it, we'll send over a kind of initial analysis in your plan. And then a massive part of when we put something in place is that adjustment and refinement in the initial stages, because I can't just be telling you, oh yeah, crack on with that, and then you don't see me for a week or 10 days, and then you check in. So we'll have that kind of like initial kind of contact, and then depending on what package you signed up for, we'll have weekly check-ins, we'll have emails, we'll use the interactive tracker, and maybe even like WhatsApp and stuff like this, depending on the level of package that you take.
That's awesome. So it's pretty hands-on, and there's a lot of sort of contact time with you, or someone from your team.
It's a massive part of the contact time, and it's a two-way street. So the more you give us, the more we can give you back.
Sure.
Like, if you don't record, or if you don't track or stuff like this, then it's super hard for us to be able to make any changes.
Well, mate, if you see anything not like that you're worried about on Andre's tracker, just give me a shout, and I'll send you some photos of what he's actually eating and how many gallons of coffee he's drinking.
This guy, don't trust him.
Mate, I'm just a skinny cyclist. What's wrong with you? Oh, we weigh the same. Never mind. Mate, I think we've given a real good idea, and some really cool stuff from your side as well. Luckily, a lot of what you've said sort of echoes a lot of what we say to people, so it seems like we're on a similar page. But mate, we really appreciate your help, and guys should head over to the website, as you said, PH Nutrition. And if you want to be super skinny like Andre, then you definitely need to check these guys out, because they know exactly what to do. But mate, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
Awesome, mate. Cheers now.
Speak soon.
Thanks, mate.